to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. You know that we're excited that you're here this week. So here's the deal. As you listen to the show, right, I know that word change, man, it throws us for a loop. It gives us the knot in the stomach, the whole 9 yards. Even if you've chosen the change, I know that that could be a challenge. So to help you navigate, hopefully make your change a smidge easier, in the show notes, you'll find my communication style assessment. There's a link there. Please take it. You'll get 2 reports. One will spotlight just your natural communication superpowers, meaning how your message just naturally lands for you, for the other person. Flip side, your lowest score, to me, that's a blind spot that really needs to be addressed. So that secondary report shines a light on your lowest score, which is when you're communicating with people maybe who communicate 180 degrees differently than you. Very important, because how is your message landing there? So again, links in the show notes, my gift to you. Now, to set the stage for my guests and I in our conversation today, I chose a quote by the amazing Brian Tracy, and he says, "Successful people are always looking for opportunities to help others. Unsuccessful people are always asking, what's in it for me?" Now, I really love this quote because it definitely sets the stage for our show topic today, which is differentiation is the key to unlocking sales. So how can brands and maybe even your sales teams differentiate themselves in a crowded marketplace so they stand out and drive customer acquisition or obviously drive sales results upward? The first step is to give first and provide value. And here's the thing, not BS value, like real value, which will build deep relationships and really easily create those lifelong customers. And here's the cool thing, with those lifelong customers, we can create passive income through referral generation, organic and natural. So who is my amazing guest today that we're going to have this great conversation about one of my favorite topics of giving first? His name is Jeff Lerner. Jeff is the founder and CEO of Misnomer.co. He leads the Fractional CMO practice for his company's global clients. And for over 20 years in his career, he's driven significant growth for startups and Fortune 500 companies, securing over $390 million in venture capital, orchestrating 3 successful acquisitions totaling nearly $2 billion, and generating more than $500 million in revenue through diverse acquisition channels. Jeff is also known as the author of The Power of Relationship in Professional Growth. So please help me welcome the amazing Jeff to the show. So thanks for being on, kiddo.
Thank you so much for having me. That intro, I mean, I just want to take that and have that be like my entrance song whenever I just show up somewhere. That was just so perfect. I'm just going to, before I walk into the next, PTA meeting at the local school, I think I need to just have that play in the background.
It's so funny, Jeff. Every time I'm introduced, podcast, speaking event, whatever, and I think, who is she? And I always tease, I go, I think I'd hire her, right? It's a joke because we never think about what we actually do until someone reads it and we hear it. And you think, wow, I guess I am pretty good, right? So fun.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed my intro.
Yes, for sure.
All right, so let's jump in and talk about what are some of those differentiating factors or unique selling propositions that brands can effectively, so how can brands effectively communicate that unique selling proposition?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been in the marketing space for 20 plus years. I've worked with some of the most incredible sales teams imaginable. I've also worked with some of the, we'll just call them challenged sales teams, right? Often, maybe even junior individuals or those that don't have the proper leadership in place. And what's so vital, and what you kind of even talked about in your intro, is this: don't ask what you can do for me, but kind of the other way around, is the best sales teams that I've ever worked with understand that the relationship between sales and marketing is a two-way street, not a one-way street.
Right.
I've had a lot of sales orgs come to me and say, hey, Jeff, I need X in order to sell. And my response is usually, tell me why you think you need that. What is it that you're hoping to do with that? And the great sales teams will give me feedback and tell me, this is why I think I need this or why I think I need that. The other sales teams are just kind of like, well, I just need something to send to a prospect, right? Differentiation, as a marketer, that's part of my job, is to take a product or a service that an organization has and say, how is it unique in a marketplace so that the sales team has an easier time getting that message across?
Yep.
And I'll give you kind of examples of that is you can take a simple product or a simple solution. For example, anything as simple as a local real estate agent who happens to do the same thing that everybody else does. But if you can differentiate that person or that business and say, well, you specialize in working with, foreclosed properties, for example, even though every real estate agent can work in foreclosed properties, they are now differentiated in a marketplace and can be known as the foreclosure expert. The way I learn these things is from a sales team. So it's kind of like a long-winded way of me saying, when I work with a sales org and I say, tell me what you're hearing from prospects, because then I can go and figure out a different angle that our competition is not taking, that we can take advantage of to make that sales process easier.
It's so interesting because I've worked with marketing people through the years because what I really want everybody to hear what Jeff is saying, because I've fallen victim to this too. I have really good sales skills, but my marketing didn't match what I was offering on the back end because I'm not a marketing expert, right? So I'm good at talking and meeting and engaging and connecting and listening and all of the sales skills. But when you say, well, can you write that down? I go, huh? What do you want me to write down? I get lost. And I remember one particular gentleman really helped me with my webinars. And as we were talking, I'd say something and he goes, oh, so blah, blah, blah. And I'd go, oh, yeah, I do that. And then I talk a little bit more and he'd pull out like some of the key things, the emotions I was talking about. And he'd pull out and give me another, well, what you're saying is blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wow, yeah, that's good. So I want everybody to hear this because you could be really good at sales and not good at marketing, right? So the two are married, but we can't be good at everything. So we have to know when to bring in those experts to help us refine that messaging so we really can go out there, shine, and differentiate ourselves. And that was such a good example with the real estate because, yeah, they can all do it. But now all of a sudden, if I'm a real estate investor looking for those properties, right now I'm going to, that person, he or she will rise to the top of my list of who to potentially vet out and work with. So,
and really, this is why when I joined an organization, either in my fractional CMO practice or when I was full-time marketing lead at companies, as part of my onboarding, as part of like my getting to know the company, I didn't want to hear from a CEO and a founder. I mean, of course I want to hear from them, like their view of what the organization is and what their mission is. But I would spend a lot of time shadowing our salespeople. I would listen to phone calls. I would say, hey, take me with you on a sales meeting, because I want to be in the room so that I can do exactly what you just mentioned. I want to hear what the conversations actually are, not what the salesperson heard. Because we all know salespeople, they have egos, they have sensitivities. So, earlier in my career, I'd go to a salesperson and be like, hey, why aren't you closing more deals? And it was never their fault. It was always, well, the customers just don't know any better, or, something from that angle. But me being on those calls and listening, I can pull things out of there and say, okay, I'm grabbing onto this idea, or I'm hearing a pain point from your customers that we are not articulating very well in our marketing, in our branding, in our sales strategy. So can I digest all of that and then come back to the sales team and say, I've reworked our playbook a little bit. Here's what we should be doing. And then I can also tee up those sales trainings and say, here's how we can be more effective in our outreach so that our marketing, whether it's something that a prospect sees online, whether it's something we're sending them, the messaging from the marketing side matches the messaging from the sales side. And both of those messages are solving the challenges that our prospects and customers have.
Yeah, and this is important too, guys. What Jeff just said. One of my clients up in New Hampshire, I've known her, for the CEO, for quite some time, and she ended up going to this other bank up in New Hampshire. Anyway, when we first came, we first started dialoguing about what she wanted to create, what her vision was, et cetera. She had all the division heads in that meeting, so we could talk and digest and understand what the vision was cumulatively, them as leaders within the organization. Then when we rolled out that, so we defined all of that so I could create the content, right, to be able to train all the salespeople. The other thing she did really smart was she included the back office support teams. So it was a little bit different in the training component for me, but I was able to have, because everybody's in sales, right? Or
Right.
service, sales service, call it what you will. They're servicing and providing service for the external client, but through that internal person that needs their support to shine in front of the client. It's all one team, if you will. So, and the other thing she did is she had the marketing division head come through all the training, and it was fast. I love him, by the way, but his name is Jeff. I love it, but as an aside, he would say, "Kind, blah 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 blah," and I'd go, "Oh my God, let's incorporate. Oh, we could create." Like all of a sudden, we were lifting off the page of what we were asking the employees to do, but how he can support them from that marketing component. So the messaging was continuous and the same, but also supporting the vision, mission, et cetera, of the organization, the culture, and the CEO. So everything you just said is so spot on. We have to work in collaboration, not in silos. And I see that way too much within my organizations. Yeah. And this is just such a success story because we've only been doing this for a year or two, and their numbers are off the charts. They're building branches. Their footprint is expanding. Their marketplace, like all these good things are happening. Why? Because we had a good plan of attack, and everybody was on the same page. That's what you're talking about, Jeff, and it's brilliant.
It is. I joined a startup, a few years ago to help them with their marketing, branding, and their strategy for how they go to market. And I sat down in the leadership, conference room. There were it was myself and 8 others, and I gave each of them a piece of paper, and it said, "We are a blank blank company." And I said, I want you all to fill this out. Like, how would you, if you could, use 2 words, if you have to use 3, or if you only want to use 1, that's fine. But with 3 words or less, describe us as a company, as an organization, the highest level. 8 people in the room, I got 5 different answers. And I showed them, and this is the leadership team, right? And they had been working together for a long time. And I put them out on the table, and I said, guys, if we can't agree on who we are, how do we expect our sales team and our marketing teams to then go ahead and describe and explain to our prospects and our customers who we are? And then also, we had 25 salespeople. How do we expect each one of them to explain who we are accurately? And then to your point, and I always make this same thing of anybody has any sort of touch point with a prospect or a customer is in a sales role, because you can make or break the relationship at any point.
Right. That's right.
So how do we then have customer service or anybody else who then is servicing a customer or answering a complaint or anything of that nature, if they also don't agree on what type or who we are as a company? We've now created this disjointed experience that means our sales process becomes harder at every single step, because not only are we internally trying to figure out and hear from our customer or our prospects what challenges that they're having, we're also trying to pick up on what did the other person who sits 3 feet away from me tell them?
That's right.
And are we on the same page? And that makes the entire process of growing revenue, driving acquisition, driving loyalty, challenging when there is not that cohesive strategy of we all know what we stand for. Now let's bring it to you.
Yeah. And it goes back to my communication style assessment, right? That little quiz that I offer. If I don't understand how I communicate, there's 5 styles in my model, right?
Yep.
So 20% of the time, Jeff, we're talking to people just like us, easy peasy, don't even have to think about it, right? We're just rocking it. That means 80% or 8 out of 10 people I'm talking to, they don't communicate like me. So my message can land differently in how they're receiving it. So now think about the layers you just described. If we're all saying something different and that client talks to 3, 4 people with 5 people within the organization, customer success, whatever it is, and they're getting mismessaged, they're thinking, I'm just not going to do anything because now I'm confused, right?
Yep.
And that's what absolutely ends up happening. So, and the other thing you said, you have 25 salespeople, guarantee they have some similarities in how they communicate, but you and we each have different filters, and there's 8 different filters in addition to the communication style. So that where you were raised, how you were raised, whether you was an ethnic family, environmental, all of that impacts how we see the world. So now you have 25 salespeople out there communicating through their filter. So now if you don't have clarity with your marketing and your messaging, you're doomed. You're doomed.
Exactly. And this is why, even though my role is quote unquote marketing and I'm here to develop brands and go to market strategies, I've had sales roles many times. B, owning my own company, I am by default our salesperson. But it also, to me, marketing and sales, and I've had founders ask me well, should our head of sales also have ownership of the marketing team or vice versa? And my answer is always no, they should be separate, but the relationship has to be completely intertwined.
Yeah.
So even though I'm a marketing person by trade, I also look at my role, and whether it's me in the role or someone of,
Right.
like me in a role, has a responsibility to the salespeople equally as much as I have a responsibility to the marketing team, because the one thing that will make a sales org fail faster than anything is when they don't have the support to understand what it is that we do, why we're even doing it in the first place, and to your point, how to speak to our potential customers.
Yeah.
Because
to understand,
we've all had those used car salesman experiences, right? Like, what do I have to do to get you to buy my SaaS product today? That doesn't work. I've never seen that succeed. So my job is to pull out those pain points so I can educate a sales org. And so my role, yes, marketing and title, but it's really marketing and sales.
Absolutely. And the two are married, man. And
without a doubt,
they need to work in tandem. And
it can be a challenging marriage at times too, for sure. But, the best ones have open communication.
Yeah, agree. So let's talk more about the brands now and the storytelling component. So what role does that storytelling play in building just a brand that we can identify? And then that's where the customer loyalty comes from, right? With that understanding. So what the brand storytelling, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, every successful brand, as they grow, they have a few key parts that are kind of a requirement to make themselves successful. And first, it's knowing who we are and what we're hoping to accomplish. But then it's really going about, building the personas. Who are the people who are most likely to buy and engage with this product or service? And it's not just like these hypotheticals. It's really creating this is who they are, right? Like I've worked with organizations that their target audience is, a middle class, mom of, 1 to 4 kids who, drives a minivan, lives in the suburbs, XYZ. There's all these different factors. And so the storytelling then is, what are the things that we as a marketing team, as a sales team, as an organization that can put out that will resonate with that sales, with that, that mom. Yep. Because for her pain points, the things she cares about are very different than tech savvy, smart, young, hip person. And I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I worked at the parent company for Pro Flowers for a long time, not a long time, a couple of years. And Pro Flowers had a very clear go-to-market strategy of, we are really tech savvy. We want to find the tech savvy, younger generation male who wants to buy something quickly that looks like they put a lot of effort and time into it, but really they didn't. They just want to get it done, right? Like it's Mother's Day, you want to find flowers for your mom or for your wife. Here's a beautiful bouquet. It's $100. Like I put no thought into really like clicking around. I'm not trying to design my own bouquet. I'm just like, this looks cool. I want to buy it and I can do it in less than 3 minutes. Well, Pro Flowers got acquired by FTD, which is like the longest legacy floral company in America that has shops all over. And FTD's brand recognition was completely different. Mm-hmm. It was older generations, typically skewed more towards women, who would actually put thought and care into, you know what, I want to get a bouquet for my mom for Mother's Day. I know she would like these flowers. Let me design, let me build this. When the acquisition took place, both organizations didn't really know how they were going to come together and make this successful. They thought we would just kind of combine efforts and use the FTD brand and the Pro Flowers brand, squeeze it all together and have like just even bigger market share. And it took a marketing team to say, guys, that is absolutely not the right strategy. We need to let the FTD customers be them, the Pro Flowers customers be here, and continue to almost talk to them completely independent of each other.
Yeah.
Because if we try to merge them, you're going to have friction because the person like me who wants to get it quick and be done, I don't want the FTD experience. So this is all of what goes into this storytelling and knowing who exactly you're going after and having a strategy for your sales organization and marketing teams that connects the dots and says, problem, person, solution, let's make sure it's cohesive.
Absolutely. So let's keep going with this. So the customer experience now, how do brands prioritize? That was a great example, right, to talk about. So how do customers think now people are thinking, oh, I have a merger coming up or whatever's going on in their world. How can brands prioritize customer experience so that they can differentiate themselves from each other too, but even more importantly, because now that organization is one, how do they shine above all the competitors out there?
Yeah, it's a great point. It's first of all, I would strongly advocate for organizations that are contemplating mergers or acquisitions, whatever it is, talk to a marketing person. Bring somebody in who understands audiences, because a lot of times you typically have like the finance team and the CEO and some other people who are in the room making these decisions and a board of directors, and they may not be thinking through what does the audience look like, and are we just doubling the size of our prospect pool, or are we going to, in some cases, cannibalize each other in some capacity? And so that was definitely part of that. And so when the acquisition was completed, it took sitting down with the collective teams and saying, this is the experience and the expectation that the FTD customer needs to continue to have. Before there was talk of, let's take the FTD website and switch it over to the Pro Flowers platform and backend and whatever it is. And we said, hey, before we do that, let's understand this. Let's actually communicate, talk to our users, talk to our customers, and understand whether or not this is just us as a business trying to make a decision which we know would make our back-end process easier. But is that going to, by default, damage the relationship we have and alienate some of our customers that are used to a different experience? So what we basically had to tackle was this idea of, yes, we have an acquisition. Yes, we're now one company. But in a lot of ways, we needed kind of like that overarching strategic, how we're going to balance the two, but then almost needed to silo a couple of different things to say, don't just take the best practice of the other and bring it in without knowing for sure that it's a best practice for that brand as well. And there's a whole lot of intricacies that go with it. When you have two brands in a marketplace, you could bid against each other on your SEM and other campaigns, but you this gave us an opportunity to differentiate in how we went to market. Now FTD could really go to market as put thought and care into what you're doing, show them that you love them, all of that. And FT and Pro Flowers could really go to market with, hey, do you want to make it look like you put a lot of thought and effort and that you love your mom, but you really just did it as quickly as possible? Cool, we got you covered.
Yeah.
So there's benefits if you can identify them and prevent yourselves from just saying, let's just collectively go to market together.
And Jeff, here's the thing. You said it before. Right. They look at, well, the back end, we need one system. Okay. I understand efficiencies and all of that. We do have to take that into account, right? That's the reality. Operations, regulations, all of that has to be taken into account for sure. But at the end of the day, if through all of that stuff, we're losing, and they call it, it's attrition, natural attrition, but we could avoid losing that market share or losing that footprint or whatever it is by just thinking a little more strategically or taking that one or two extra steps. We throw the baby out with the bathwater. Sometimes an old saying, but we throw the baby out with the bathwater instead of saying, whoa, what do we actually have? How can we take this and make it better cumulatively? And I don't know that we always take that extra step, and it's dangerous because attrition, I get it. Yeah, we're going to have attrition, but could we minimize the attrition of people running, both internally, our employees, as well as the customers running, because they feel like we don't hear them anymore. We don't see them. We don't add the value to them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say too is to imagine this scenario, right? Like there are people who absolutely despise Facebook as an app, as a company, whatever it may be. And yet they're still comfortable being on Instagram, even though they're owned by the same company. They just, they don't want to see posts and rants and political, whatever it is. They just like to scroll and look at pictures and see what's funny out in the world or whatever. Could you imagine, and even though they were separate companies, can you imagine if after the acquisition and Instagram, became part of Meta and the Facebook family, if they said, hey, the only way you can access Instagram is if we're going to put it within the Facebook app. Now you're forcing people to say, what's worth it for me? Do I want to be on both platforms or just one? And so that's where you could be owned by the same company. And I'm sure there are similarities in backends and, tech stack, but they're completely different in a lot of ways. So that and I know plenty of people, because I spend a lot of time in social media for my job, plenty of people who are on Instagram who are like, I will never have a Facebook account.
Yep.
And so it's that kind of scenario, right? Like, how do you create that balance and differentiation between even your own internal products?
Yeah. And it's interesting because like my kids say Facebook, that's old people, right?
Yeah.
And I think Instagram's, I don't want to watch a story. I don't want to watch a video, right? I don't want to scroll through. I want to keep up with people. I want to keep in touch with people. So two different demographics, that would have been dangerous, right? From a value proposition perspective or the customer experience, right?
Without a doubt.
Would have been off. Yeah,
Yep.
totally. So let's talk about the sales strategies now. How can sales teams identify and target their specific customer segments? Or have we been kind of talking about that already, right? I think we've kind of done that one. Yeah.
Well, we have, but at the same time, it's also, this kind of goes back to the very first thing I said about the two-way street, right? I dislike sales orgs who stand there with their hand out saying, marketing, like, come on, what do you got for me today? Because I can only do my job as well as the information that I have to help a sales org. So to your point, it's how do they go about finding them? Communicate, right? Like tell me as a marketer, hey, you know what, Jeff, I think we are better served with this type of individual, or this is our target audience. Because of these conversations I'm having, I'm identifying that this problem actually impacts this person more than another. So in a lot of cases, and I've heard this quite a few times in my career, we were going after and trying to, in our B2B products, trying to go and connect with, let's say a director of operations in an organization. And we were like, hey, let's get the director of operations on a call. And it soon became clear that maybe it's not the director of operations we need to go to. It's the director of logistics and supply chain.
Yeah.
that we need to be going to have this conversation with. I would never have known that if a sales team hadn't come to me and said, we're not getting the traction with this person, with this persona. Can you listen to some of these calls and maybe you can pull something out of there that makes sense? And after listening to a handful of calls, I said, you know what? Everyone keeps mentioning this other role. Let's try an outreach program to that role. And we saw a huge shift and success in the business. So don't be afraid as a salesperson to say, hey, marketing team, help me identify what this audience looks like.
Yeah, it's interesting because people say to me, oh, you need to, because I say, look, you're having conversations, you build relationships, people want to refer to you, whatever. And they say, do you need to speak to the CFO? I say, no. That's the end of the game. The CFO is going to say we don't have the money for training, whereas
Without
the
a doubt,
stakeholders who are held accountable for their bonuses based on the revenue results, right? They're the ones who really are tapped into what is the skill level, what's needed, marketing, whatever the support functions are needed. The CFO comes in at the end once the stakeholder says, hey, this is my budget. This is how much I want to spend on sales, whatever it is, right? Whatever pieces of the sales force, whatever, like a back end system, stuff like that. But I never want to meet the CFO up front because their job is to protect
to say no.
money. Yeah, to save money, not to say how can we make more money per se, right? They're looking from savings. And then the stakeholders who really are, their neck is on the line. They're the ones who, right, we need to have those conversations. So sometimes if I wasn't clear, I'd say, well, yeah, they hold the purse string. Sure, that's who I need to talk to. It's the last person I would ever want to talk to. And not have anything against CFOs. They're great.
Sure. But I'll also, you bring up a great point, and I'll add this too, is the secret of how marketing and sales can also work together and help make this process easier. When a salesperson can find a champion in an organization that they can build a relationship with, that they can, equip with what they need to then sell that up through their own organization. Marketing teams typically have budgets, and with budgets also come, hey, can we send this person something special because they're doing everything that they can to, help sell us, in the organization and introduce us to the right people and whatever it is. So where a salesperson may not have the budget to, anything from like send them coffee to, whatever it is, send some sort of token of appreciation. As a marketing team, nothing I love to do more than put together a little box of something that has a couple of one-pagers about our value, a couple of other like tidbits of information to help them sell us within the company, and a little gift for them to say, thank you for helping open those doors for us internally. So great salespeople know, go ask the people in my organization with money to send something to my client or prospect, because that will only help them in the long run.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, Jeff, everything we just talked about is communication. We have to have open communication. These silos have to go away within, I don't care what type of industry you're in. I mostly work with banks and credit unions, right? The financial industry, but I've seen it everywhere. I have other, my kids, my husband, there's silos everywhere. We're losing traction. We're wasting time. We're losing a lot of money. And we're not making the impact out in the world with, if my service is a good solution and we're not providing that, that's not okay to me, right? Our job is really to show up and serve. I believe that in my heart. And I think when we have these silos and egos are at play, we're not doing our job. And that's sad. To me, that's just sad. I just want to share, I read an article, a good friend of mine, his name is Kevin Hancock. He's he's the CEO of Hancock Lumber, one of the oldest businesses in our country. And he just wrote a brilliant article. Gallup just came out 2024 of the employees within organizations are just so disengaged. So the leaders, we need to focus, man. We need to open up communication, reduce these silos, because then we can create internal engagement with each other and have fun and create and just bring out amazing things to the marketplace. We have to get out of our silos. I love everything you said, Jeff. Thank you so much.
And the one thing, and I'll just conclude with this on that point, is I have had salespeople and even sales leaders, when I say, hey, how come you're not bringing us into the equation? How come you're not coming to marketing? How come we're not participating in all of the work that you're doing to help you make your job better? I've had people literally say to me, I think we're afraid that if we ask for help, that marketing will get the credit instead of the sales team getting credit. And we don't want to give up credit as a salesperson, right? Like you said, there's ego involved. You're so afraid to give up the credit, whatever that word means, the recognition, the what. And I'm like, look, I don't get paid commission. My job is to help you make more money, because if you're making more money, the company is making more money, and then I get a bonus.
That's right.
So if I can't make you successful, then I'm not going to end up being successful. So like, we're not fighting for the same commission, right? Like, let's be clear. My job's to help you make yours so I make mine later.
Yeah.
And yet ego and salespeople kind of go together sometimes. And that's what, can sometimes build those walls that, like you just said, that need to come down.
Yeah, it's the us and them mentality, and it makes my head hurt, because it's just so much easy working cohesively than that us and them. This is mine, that's yours. It's like, really? So yeah, I'm with you, right? Again, but it's that giving first, not what's in it for me.
That's right.
Yes, at the end of the day, what's in it for me, certainly, but you really do have to give first. So Jeff, thank you so much for your time and sharing your marketing genius with us. I appreciate it. So here's the deal, guys. If you have questions specifically for Jeff, reach out, jeff@misnomer.co. It's not .com. I will put that in the show notes. And the website is misnomer.co. Again, that I promise will be in the show notes. Jeff, thank you again for being on, sharing your zone of genius, and hopefully sharing that perspective of, yes, we do have silos. Yes, we know we have silos. Okay, maybe this is some of the ideas and strategies that you and I just discussed here, that people could say, let's have a meeting with all the division heads, including marketing or including sales or whatever it might be. Think differently, do something differently, and magic happens on the back end, right? Inevitably, we do make more money in spite of ourselves sometimes. So yeah, we got to share. We got to share. Give first. If anything came from the show, it's give first, and break down those silos and open that communication. Jeff, thank you so much. Really enjoy meeting you. Thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure. And I'll just end with a quote from Jerry Maguire, who one of the best salespeople around, whatever it was, and that relationship that he had with Cuba Gooding Jr., his client, was help me help you. Yeah. Right. Like, it's such a small, succinct, easy way, but that's, if we all adapted or adopted that mentality of help me help you, man, sales and marketing together would absolutely grow and succeed and do really, really well.
Dominate. I mean, it's a dominate, right? Let's just go out and dominate our marketplace for sure. Thank you. I love that. Help me help you. So simple and so profound at the same time. Great way to end the show. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together, no matter where you are on change in your life. I truly hope that my guests and I provide an idea, a tip, a strategy. We talked about a lot of stuff today. Take one of those ideas or go to your division head and ask for some of the ideas maybe that Jeff shared today. Trust me, information's a beautiful thing, but if it's just in your head and you're not doing anything with it, not going to help you. As soon as you take that information and you put it into practice, magic really does happen on the back end. So again, take the ideas, talk to Jeff, go to the website, check out what he's all about. That might be your next step that you need to change what's happening in your organization, your life, and in your business. Jeff, thank you again for being on. Thank you all for tuning in. You're listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.com. I truly am inspired that you join me every week and that you trust me to help you with your sales and marketing efforts. I love you all. Have a great week. Be inspired. Do something different, right? What is your call to action? Reach out to Jeff. That's a great call to action. I love you all. I'll see you next week. Have a great one, everybody.